over the last decade and a half, global and local hashtag movements have been forged to expressly reject the falsehoods in social constructs and dominant narratives that are fed to society by people in positions of power, political leaders, and governments. At the core of all these movements is a call for a world that is more truthful and more just, for a people that is more courageous and more filled with love, and for a grieving of the world that has been, to make room for the pain and joy of the world that is to come. Poetry has, before and during these movements, served as a space and platform through which to name, interrogate, critique, and reimagine these constructs and narratives. Poetry invites us to engage with the deeper project of radical transformation. We are said to be living in and towards a post-racial society where words like Rainbow Nation and colorblind are frequently used to describe a supposed reconciliation of imagined and real racial difference. However, our lived reality presents a more complex truth.
Let's say you identify with being labeled Black. You feel a certain sense of pride, of belonging when you write or say it. You form judgment against society based on the idea that society has formed judgments against you.
Black. Backward, brutes, behind, beggars, beyond blessed, blameful, boastful, but beautiful. Big black behind, big breast, begging by Bandilo, big one, a black Benz, buys body, big bucks, big bills. Body beggars, business blossoms, but bwana, baba, banji budgety.
Black bodies genuflect on sidewalks to a God that is all brimstone and fire. Their chorus, a hallelujah of bullets, a Red Sea deep enough for their mothers to swim in. They said he looked like a serial offender. There was too much Africa in his skin. Something about the way he walked screamed rape and pillage. The way he pulled that wallet quick out of his pocket, it might as well have been a bullet. Amadou Diallo, trigger warning.
Saying you can't breathe and dying, lounging in your house and shot by someone who mistook your house for their house and dying. It's a boy being shot whilst picking a sunflower and dying. It's fill that silence how you please and still dying.
You tell their deaths like fairy tales. The way their skulls split across pavement. The way they cannot outrun a bullet. How can she say Jesus was a white man when he died the blackest way possible? With his hands up. With his mother watching.
Makafula Vilagaz is 18 years old and has never seen a drop of high school blood. Makafula Vilagaz was born naked and suffering and designated to a high unemployment, high Dhaka, high populous quarter cap next to a cozy Jewish suburb. His uncle is unemployed, his father is a literate taxi driver, his girlfriend is illiterate and pregnant. His older brother was shot for a Kavela dealer in front of Makafula Vilagaz's 12-year-old eyes. His aunt is in prison, via shoplifting, mother, daughter of a domestic worker who fell in love with a Tamara 1950s gangster. I would not judge Makafula Vilagaz, smiling and matizing it, while
my grandmother whispers tales of moving on, move on, my son, she keeps on saying, while paying rent in today's hard living, because in these streets, wounded by depression, perseverance is what it takes to survive the sharp blade of this ghetto, of this overworked and underpaid ghetto, this ghetto of people trying to make a living and getting shut down, this ghetto of people who are meant to serve me and you, you're killing each and every one of us, this ghetto, I call home.
Taxi fare war, guerrilla warfare tactics, urban jungle, JSEC, hard life and fat beats. It's an adventure, venturing down those black streets. Inner city kids have never felt the grass beneath their black feet. It's the 011, the 011, where you call 10-111 and no one comes.
I do not know
how to celebrate this black that has left me in pieces, but maybe I am not to love it, but to survive it.
I am every shade swallowed in the mouth of black because I am black. I must be black, must be all black, everything always full black, must hold black close as blood, will tender it, dear as my own God-given name.
In time, love us encyclopedic, catalog the survival in our spines, reference our pulse as grand centuries of footsteps, the tenacity to strive, the audacity of breath, glow. And I swear, one day you will know that there is a sacred sermon in the tone of your skin. The way sun rays unashamedly sing their fellowship to your melanin, the music that molds brown hers and hymns reminds you that it has always been light which worships you as kin.
I am the embodiment of my people. I'm a symbol of their strength and struggle. My feet freely raised from the North Star to the South Sent, I fight back to the world of racial dust. Badi Mubaka have sent me to wipe the dirty floors of race, class, and poverty that my father left untouched. I am Steve Bantu Bigo's descendant. And I know it's not a sin to be born black.
The myth of South African exceptionalism is that the democratic state is somehow a miracle, a rainbow nation that leads to cold. But it isn't a rainbow that leads to cold. It's a damp and dingy mineshaft, hurtling away from safety and the surface.
As a country, most of us know that we're well out of any rainbow nation dream. But I think while the economic and the poverty and the unemployment figures are what they are, we need to have more open and honest conversations about race, the function of racial privilege, the histories that have created the racial privilege. And once we've had those or are starting those, we can have the conversations around how we remediate this.
So, for instance, I am reluctantly classified as colored, and I always am caught in the dilemma of whether to acknowledge that label which carries such painful apartheid memories for me, or to take up its longer history as a name for emancipated slaves, which is part of my own history. So how do I signal all of those things?
I think the real work that is done around race and transformation is done from a grassroots level, and that the government is reacting the whole time as opposed to interacting.
In the mid and latter part of the 20th century, fierce liberation struggles against colonialism were fought and supposedly won in Africa, Asia, and South America. However, when one begins to scratch the liberated surface of the post-colonial and post-apartheid state, one begins to question how free we all are.
On green, fertile soil they settled, built churches and erected crosses. They sold us milk from our cows, grain from our land, found diamonds in our mines and paid us to dig them up.
We had grown used to picking up doors in the morning, to turning our blood over and over in the sand. We were staying alive to bury each other.
They threw nightmares at us and we caught them with our eyes. See, no war has ever been worn on knees. The ripped apart black skin is yet to be worn again. I once bet on my ancestors' graves. I don't want to be wrong again. And remember that you have to die to be born again.
Political theory, an introduction. If more blood had been shed to get out of oppression, less lives would be going down under liberation. Bantu goes and lecture lips at the monkey parade. Fela says only a pervert would want any struggle to continue.
We are from the struggle, we form the puzzle, reform this jungle, we hunt the hunters dry. Bartenders squeeze guitar strings to identify what we need to quench our savannah thirst, obsessed with the idea of being told you are free, bees. Yes, BEEs, you are free like swams. Slums are buzzing like pests, annoying the crap out of government, wanting to crush us citizens, feeding us poisonous isms with the aim of killing us in our sleep.
Slowly drowning in township realities, chicken-minded crowned eagles live till death under the forest canopy. Wings clipped by destitution. Still, the people dance to the songs of the demagogue, waiting hands open, hoping that somehow broken promises would manifest.
This hell, hemmed in, its forced geometry of concrete boils, spreads outwards, sidewards, in its rashes of sackcloth, of shack, of specification matchbox, to touch the stitchwork of hills, as near the docks the boss drives by in his Shepstone Benz, as his boys look at Chwayo's skull as cargo. Here, there, confined, where visions of heaven subsided long ago.
Farouk, I hear you say amnesia must fall precisely because South Africa is still South Africa. Amnesia must fall precisely because South Africa is not Azania.
The African child is victorious. Now the apartheid generation is getting nervous. They fear us by Asaba. They need the bus's permission. Now there's a breakdown in communication. The beautiful ones are born and we need an explanation. It's an abomination to idolize those who are part of your dehumanization.
And though for now, her people still own our land, minerals, banks, and consumer industries, the new ideas are ours. She conquered the past, we own the future. There is nothing she can do to us anymore. Her survival will not be negotiated on her terms, and her grip will finally conform to the inevitable. It's only a matter of time. There are just too many of us.
The rise of rands and roads excludes the majority of South Africans from discourse. One being a symbolic impediment to thinking about culture, lived experiences, and the other being a material impediment from taking part in spaces that allow discussion and discourse.
So the idea of what genealogies, what knowledges we're drawing from, and how those are violent. The ideas of how the spaces of the universities, as they are built on histories of white supremacy, and how they are violent, and how we need to have an active dismantling, an active undoing of these violent systems to arrive at any place that could be called freedom.
It wasn't about the party, it was about the policy. And that placed politics in the correct framework that it had fallen out of, or seems to have fallen out of, where politics is not about personal, professional gain. Politics is about policy. It's about people, and it's about problem solving. And trees must fall and roads must fall. Swung that very much back into perspective.
The fact of the feminist dimension of the struggle is the thing that will be, for me, its striking legacy, along with what it achieved in terms of coloniality and economic justice.
Inequality is implicitly and explicitly woven into the fabric of society, and this is reflected across multiple status quos. Although varying public and private efforts are being made to work towards equality and equity, there is a further nuanced thing around the loud and silent ways in which violence is often used as a mechanism to maintain these status quos.
Never mind the scattered bodies. How do we survive Marikana? How do the survivors survive? What democracy? Whose? Who does this nervous condition belong to? Are you still scared of the police?
It was self-protection, said the police. It was the police, said the union. It was the strikers, said lawmen. Nothing, said the dead miners.
From speaking minds, we must get liberation, not death. Racing beyond fears for a loss so deep, I weep at your burial from the north. Violence that robber black and white, and anger that you have gone chokes me in songless silence. All miners and the 44 miners killed in Marikana, I still hear your work song unfading and tearing the world, and I pray you sing it till they in power tremble.
Humanity has died in Marikana. The strike is over. The dead must return to work.
Tramps! Down and out, amakwere, those Nigerians, cockroaches and bums, drifters and hoarders. The pattern, the prison, the plague, sub-proletariat underclass, failure by market and the state, stealing our women and stealing our jobs. And like banuka laba bantu. Banokudina. Uzothola begcwala isiganga. Besijwayeleka bayanuka, damn lazy bastards. What are they doing here with their my God is good or funny food and funny clothing? There's so many of them shits. Why don't they just go home?
I'm not going back to Africa, not today. Not until I bag a foreign passport that bears my name, knits my soul to a wrinkled skin. If I have to, you won't catch me today. You won't crack my skull against your prison bars. My journey doesn't end in your detention camps.
One, what we want. A place to cook. A place to cook and sleep. A place to cook and sleep and shit. A place to cook and sleep and shit and wash. A place to cook and sleep and shit and wash and love. A place to cook and sleep and shit and wash and love and study. A place to cook and sleep and shit and wash and love and study and dream. This place to be there when we return at twilight. This place to be there when my children are sick.
What is a sin? I want to tell Mama what they've done to me at church, but I fear hell, so I do not speak.
When class is over, Aisha transfers her books into a backpack. She's already practicing a life of walking the tightrope between a silence that chokes and a silence that will make believe it is a sanctuary.
First year varsity in a new city, while walking down the street alone, a man I do not know wordlessly grabs my breast as he passes. He doesn't stop. Neither do I. I've always known this body is not mine alone.
I think men only love my mouth when it is not moving, not saying no, not protesting, not biting, not screaming, not cursing, not saying no. I swear I said no, but who hears you when you have no mouth?
She said no, so I hit her. I hit her again, and she fell, so I kicked her again. And I want to know how that feels. Rage rises, fist in groin, torpedoes belly, pythons intestines, sprouts to wings like God's own angels, thunders bullets through hands and feet. I want to know what it takes to beat a woman to death.
It is incredibly violent, and that is a demand we should make upon our state in the way we live our lives, that we should not be living a life that is ordinarily violent, and violent in the extreme.
If the state is saying to us that if you've got the means, don't hold back, shoot first, ask questions later, then what's to stop the average citizen from following suit?
Through South Africa's history, violence is given as the singular option. And I think it's important for us to see alternatives to violence in constructing what a society can be. And those alternatives can come in the form of options, opportunities.
And I think that the organizing that we need to do needs to be together in community rather than relying on colonial and violent structures like prisons, jails, and the government to protect us.
Thomas Sankara, murdered leader of the 1980s revolution in Burkina Faso, is famously quoted as saying, "Comrades, there is no true social revolution without the liberation of women." Although greater attention has been afforded to the war on women's bodies, one wonders how visible and heard women are in constructing themselves out of that war.
She fought to escape the gaze of men who fuck her with their eyes, wants to climb out of their angry purity, wants to come out from behind the skin on their rigid faces. If only their eyes could vomit her onto any street corner or alley, she would make her way to dreams, to riding high, if only.
To a black woman, a safe space might as well be a metaphor. She carries her body like an apology, turned inward from a gaze that is not her lover's. She is accustomed to the rise of the hairs on the back of her neck in response to the scent of danger in the wind, even in her wounded hour. Death could still be waiting on the other side of that door, knock, knock.
In our miniskirts and our burqas, we sit on the mountaintop drafting obituaries, smiling to prevent falling into open graves, learning to breathe underground. But we are taught not to ask why our men are undertakers, carrying spades between their legs, fists full of dust, why they are already dressed for funerals.
We exist to be taken from the grocery store, from our schools, from our beds. Our bodies do not belong to us.
I'm known as Marokgabo, mother to my firstborn's name, known as Mrs. Mabie, wife of the family I married into, known as Mandela's wife. I'm commonly known by these names other than my own. Commonly Houdini. It's expected. It's cultural.
They will say you are a woman when you sit at the table, say nothing, keep him full. His hands are buckets with the bottoms removed. And when his love lifts you into them, you will not realize that loving him will hurt you a long time. You will bow your tongue into your throat to make room for his words.
Men raised on the sorrows of their mothers don't know how to love women or themselves. They're like the powers that starve us and then pretend to feed us. Love is not charity. It is not a celebrity photo op with orphans. Africa begs for her own riches, and we turn into crumbs in each other's eyes like rats. We bite and blow as we go. Will a generation of mothers apologize for how we've raised our sons? Will somebody accept responsibility?
Under pressure. She has taken strain, my feminist friend. This has not been a good time for us. A chance meeting in a restaurant. It had been years. Close once, we greet warmly. I move on. She returns to her conversation, and I see it. Stylish as always. fire in her glancing eyes, hands in motion. She is animated, engaged. But I see it in the set of her mouth, the gleaming silver in her locks.
Now, even on those dark days, though the voices in your head will not agree, you are not defect, you are not damaged, you are not default, you are not sorry, and you should not be. You are miracle. You are harmony.
I am more than a rock, motherfucker. I'm a woman. I'm a bad bitch. I am a diva. I am Her Majesty the Queen. I am ugly. I am divine. I am crazy. I am fine. I am a WO man. I am a well-organized man. I am a whoa man.
I am so hip, even my errors are correct. I sailed west to reach east and had to round off the earth as I went. The hair from my head thinned and gold was laid across 3 continents. I am so perfect, so divine, so ethereal, so surreal, I cannot be comprehended except by my permission. I mean, I can fly like a bird in the sky.
The rape trial of Jacob Zuma, I think that was a turning point for many of us who could see the dire contradictions in our everyday life. But here was the direct contradiction laid out for us to see.
I think for men in South African society, we need to ask ourselves, to what extent are women's voices in our everyday discourse? And to what extent are we listening to the experiences of women?
The optics look right, but I wouldn't go so far as to say that that symbolized any real rooted structural change, in that these may just be women that are playing into male roles, and that the roles themselves, the character, the nature of the positions that they are playing into have not changed and still symbolize very much the patriarchy.
And I think that if we're going to build another society, that women are not afraid in, that women are not devalued in, that women are celebrated in, then we need to start doing that work ourselves.
Political leaders, especially those forged out of liberation movements, won the following of their people by removing conditions of governance that were inhumane. However, the cultures of governance that have taken root in place of the ones removed have become equally, if not more, questionable.
Something is bothering me. Something is bothering me. Looks like you don't know. We all want people. S'bo Cele. S'bo Cele. S'bo Cele.
Outsiders own our opportunities outside. Obasanjo's oil oozes outside. Processed, packaged, premium petroleum, prices peak. Poor people produce. Prosperous people process poor people's produce. Proudly preaching, promoting prosperity principles.
So we only come to you to be political and every couple of years to do political dance. Do we speak? No, we play political bands to distract the crowd from our political plans. And I steal as part of our political pact. I mean, everybody else does, it's a political fact. And my family needs these political stacks. That's why I keep up with this political act.
In my land, they call it Nyawawa, and it's coming. It was the first to steal our trees and rains. Does it threaten our new pumpkin tendrils? That corruption? Chase it out like the people near Lake Victoria do to evil, beating their pots and pans overnight to chase it away, Nyawawa.
Maybe the tea, the pots, and the plates of Dane Hayes are sweet. Maybe State House cocktails are blessed by the Archbishop of Gabola Church. Maybe there's bliss on earth and it lives in a fire pool. Maybe the stomach is overtaking the mouth. Maybe our children will turn the tables and curse the dazzling dresses we wear. Maybe the mirror is telling us lies. Maybe we are high-flying creatures or trap and lost creepers. Maybe our ghetto fabulous gods will fall between the cracks of a Nyaupe riot.
Guide me in, privatize the sun, copyright the clouds, before the others come, those others, to steal our rainbows. From Johnny Diani and Commandante Honey, an era ends. Since then it's money, money, money.
They are too obsessed with the honey of money that stings the BEEs. It's no wonder our flag is forever asking why endlessly. Now, he reckons it's probably the immorality of society that these policies work only for the ones with big bellies, who stand behind podiums publicly, who speak proudly of their deeds, while our country is falling apart at the seams.
With each cross you take, and all we get are broken promises, cheap t-shirts, or me on pot-belly stages. We get raped by our fathers, our homes get broken into, and still your taking never stops. We have sung your praises. We have filled your stadia. We have devoted our lives to you. So damn it, I expect more from you.
Yes, I'm AK-47. I know of a greater power, greater than me. The strength of the majority of the numerous numbers of the people as a community, rising up in a defense militia to defend to resist every aggression of violence against the community, and stepping on forward to organize as a class against the tiffin ruling class.
You work for me. But I'm tired of seeing my countrymen bleeding for the sake of your fees. See, you work for me. But I cannot believe in your incompetent grinning at my nation's needs. You work for me inadequately, selfishly stabbing our unity, spitting at the beauty and diversity, disrespectfully rubbing dirt in the wounds that it should be your duty to heal for our children's prosperity. Don't we drive on the same roads you'd rather take on loans, or aren't you here too? You work for me.
The work of critically interrogating one's society can lead to an analysis of the situation as dire. However, the Poetics of Transformation does not call us to ruminate only on what is, but to be brave enough to believe that this is not it. We are invited to psychologically and physiologically reimagine ourselves and map our way to there, the liminal space of radical transformation, the underpinning rumbling of social justice.
We need to hold ourselves to account when we don't respect others, and in so doing, do not respect ourselves. Maybe if we hold ourselves to account, we will reach a stage where the state accounts for the state's accounts.
There is no lack and no war where the hundreds of years of coloniality have been unpicked and unraveled so that knowledge and learning and spirituality and ideas and voice is unbound from that violence of whiteness.
I want to live in a country and I want to live in a world where I'm not in need of an armor of constant awareness, of constant vigilance, of constantly having to protect myself against not only the reality of impending violence, but the anticipation of it.
I think absent those stresses, society would advance in a state of real, tangible joy.
Until this acceleration of civilizations created hominin differences, hominin day, hominin nay, hominin ni, hominin na. We all walked South Africa. Hominin day, hominin nay, hominin ni, hominin na. From up in trees to down on ground. In upright ratio of leg took us from 4 into infinity. Hominin day, hominin nay, hominin ni, hominin na. One common mama. So far, so root. This message is human psychology, anti-apocalyptology, a working towards collective memory, history, a giant forgetting of legacy, the mysteries, original African ingenuity, artistry of the tribe called humanity. Oh, we, from mama, oh, we, from Africa, oh, we, a legacy of stars, coming and going from same source. A sea of faces, one face, a dark, spacious wave, all the way home, all the way home.
There are no borders in the world. There is no distance between races, genders, nations, gods, and languages. Africa is the heart of the planet. Our resources feed the world. They always have. Our people, a kaleidoscope of color and ancestry, move freely. We are revered for holding the history of humanity. We are respected for what we have endured and contributed to the world. Ours is a story of transcendence. How to dive into the heart of pain to get to the bottom of the truth. How to walk with fear without being consumed by it. How to coexist with difference through self-respect and respect of the other. Who we are is embedded in all that we do and everything that originates from us. The world eats the flesh of our land, adorns itself with our magical art, and learns through our sciences and prospers through our understanding of humanity.